Assalamu alaikum. We start this new playlist about basic Arabic grammar, and this will be only in English, so it's designed for English-speaking people. So today I will start not like the usual way people start with language, going through the alphabet and things like this. I think there is enough information about that if you want to, but in the future videos we will cover this. In this here first video I will emphasize the how easy it is to learn the language if we follow this method that I'm gonna explain. First thing, the grammar, when you say grammar in Arabic, what they mean is the movements at the end of the words. So you have the nouns, verbs, and meaning letters, they're called. It's like the articles in English, to, from, and such things. So the movement on names and verbs, the present tense specifically, that's only tense of the verb that moves. These movements at the end, they're three movements. They sound as U, A, and E. So deciding which movement to use is the subject of grammar. That's what you will learn. By knowing that, which movement to use, you will have to know who is the subject in order to give it the right movement, who is the object in order to give it the right movement, and who is being used as an explanation after one of these meaning letters. Like if you say in something, the movement at the end changes. And that's all the grammar is about, these changes. And the reason you need to know these changes is by knowing them or deciding which movement to use, you already decided what is the subject, which is the object, and you know which is a name, which is a verb. So I don't want to go through the too much explanation about this, but you should know this, that always compare what you learn here with your language. So try to be flexible with that. So compare what you know. In this case, for English speaking, try to match it. The reason why this is important, even if it doesn't match perfectly, but in any language you have to have a subject or someone who does the action. In any language you have to have a verb, and in any language you have to have an object. So just learn how to match these and be able to switch between your language and, in this case, the Arabic language. If you do that, what you will be doing by learning this grammar is you're just learning what you already know in a different way. It's not like you're learning some new subject you know nothing about. You already know how to use language, verbs, names, and change between these and organize them in a certain way so they're not confused with each other. So all you're doing by learning the grammar is you're just doing it in a different way. Some other people organize their verbs and subject and objects in a different way. That's all you're doing. So by having this, you approach this subject with this mindset, that I'm just learning something I already do, and be aware of that all the time. This, I think, will make it that much easier for you to learn the language. That's one thing. Another thing, these movements, in Arabic you change these movements. It's a three movements. We will learn these symbols. You do the same thing in English, but in English you show it as letters. So I think in this way it's easier in Arabic. So instead of writing, knowing what each word letter to put in, you just put these three movements. So you're always aware of what you are doing. You're putting a movement at the end of each letter, each word that takes movement, because some words will be fixed, they never change, and names and verbs, the present tense specifically, change their endings according to their position in the sentence. So I think this is one thing you should keep in mind. Also, we will see now when I discuss these one type of these movements, you will see how it will be easy for you to start building up this knowledge. So let's start now. As I said, I'm not going to start with the alphabet. I'll just want to prove to you that just by learning a few basic information about the language, you'll be able to recognize names and verbs. Just by looking at this text here, you're able to see what is a name, what is a verb. So by recognizing these symbols that we will discuss in this first video, you will be able to recognize a good number of names within a text, even if you don't even know the alphabet of the language. And the reason why is these movements will only attach to names. And another movements or articles or letters will only attach to verbs. Specifically, you have letters for past tense, present tense. So by knowing these letters and symbols, you'll be able to look at the text and recognize this is how many, these are all names and these are verbs. And that's, I think, will make this a lot easier. That's what we will see now. Also, I should note is we will use the text that have these marks here. Usually when you read in a newspaper or most of the books, they will not show these movements, these marks above and below to teach you how to pronounce the word. But some texts, like here, this is a text from the Quran, the first chapter. You see these movements. This fatha here called dhamma here, kasra. These three movements here, they are indicated. You see, this here is a, e, a, u. So when you look at this word here, if you know the alphabet, you just pronounce the letters and you move the pronunciation following these movements. This one here is sukun, means there is no movement. So using text like this, we will start learning more about this, how the language is built. So let's start with this here, as I said, you can look at the text, download the text like this, just Arabic text on the internet. If you download the Quran, or this is an article from Wikipedia. It's called Arabic diacritics. You see here they use the same thing. If you just go to this, if you see this Arabic diacritics here, that's, if you type this name, you will get these movements, a full article about it. You can read it there. You see they show them here in different. These blue ones are what they called a diacritics. In Arabic, it's tashkeel. So I don't suggest you worry about reading this and trying to understand it, but just as a reference, you just keep it to consult it every now and then. You can use that, but don't try to study it from there. Just follow with these lessons that we make, and we will cover all of it in a step by step. And here, as you can see, this here O, E, A, and first we will talk about these marks here that I want to use to recognize the nouns. So you have these three movements. Here you have how they're pronounced in Arabic. They're using English letters. So this is fatha, fatha, fatha. This is fatha here. So this here is fatha. This you see it's at the top of the last letter here. This word here is bab, B-A-B. I wrote it in here, bab. And you put this scratch here on top, that's called fatha, and you pronounce it so by itself. So when you pronounce this, you say baba, baba, baba al-bayt, baba al-markaz or the center, baba al-mabna, the door of the building. So baba. This here is E. This is kasra. So you say babi, babi. So if one of these letters I talked about, if you say I'm going to the door, you say ila al-babi, al-babi. That letter that you used before, one of these letters, will cause this ending to take this movement, babi. So you pronounce this babi, babi. So this is called kasra, E. It's a short vowel. You have 3 vowels in Arabic, and you have these short vowels. They represent the 3 vowels in a shorter breath, let's say, or you pronounce it in a short way. If you fill it, it becomes the full letter or the full vowel letter. The third one here is U. This is Dhamma here. So this is Dhamma, and this here is Kasra. So don't worry about these names, just concentrate on the sound. This A, E, U. A, E, U. The fourth one, which these are the 4 movements you will see at the end of these verbs and nouns, is called sukoon, which means calmness. The sukoon al-layl, calmness of the night. So sukoon meaning no movement. So I'd like you to think of it as no movement. It's easier than using different expressions. So just sukoon, understand it as no movement. And the symbol for it is just a circle like this, or in the Quranic text they use like this small letter like this, open, small letter like this here. We will see some example of it, but for now we will not worry about this. We will only worry about the movements, the 3 movements. Now what we will practice is, there is another form of these. You just add another scratch here, another scratch here, or another over there, and the sound becomes an, in, and on. If you see here, this here is O. If I add another O to it, it becomes on. You can write it this way, or you write it like this. Same letter, you just add this to it. So you can see it like this or like this. So the pronunciation of this is un. So it's u, n at the end. It's called a silent n at the end of this. So un, in, an, in, un, an, in, on. So in this lesson, this is all you need. If you forget everything I just said, don't worry about it. Just remember these 3 names: Fatha, Kasra, Dhamma. And the sound of them is A, E, U. The one we will use today is the an. If you add, as I said, you double these, the symbols, you add an n to it. So this becomes an, in, and on. So the way this bab will become baban, babin, babun. If we put another O here, so this becomes babun. So if you add double, when you double it, you add the n to it. So an, in, and on. So let's have an example here. You will see that just by recognizing these three letters, you will pick out a good number of these names in this text without even or without you even know the alphabet here. So one of the distinguishing marks of nouns is that they take this an, in, and un, or this un, and only indefinite names will take these. That's why I wanted to start with them. When you see an in, or an un at the end of a letter of a word, that means it's a name, and it's indefinite name. It's not being identified. It's indefinite. So by knowing these just three, if all you did is just remember these now, you will be able to look at any Arabic text. Make sure you write Arabic text when you search the internet, because other languages, they use the same text, like in Pakistan, Bangladesh, Persia, and things, countries like this. So just make sure it's Arabic text with diacritics or tashkeel. So if I showed you the article in Wikipedia, just look up, go back with this video, you'll know that it's diacritics. That's the name of it in English. I will try to limit these complicated different expressions to a simpler language as much as I can. So now we have an, in, and un. If we look for it in here, you see it's if we start with here with this text, you see this here is one scratch, you have here two. So this one here, you see, you can mark this as a name. You're guaranteed that this will be a name, because only a name will take these two scratches down here. So here you see now there's two scratches in here. A different text. I chose this text because it's for copyright. I think it's okay. So you can see the scratches here. Now at the end of this letter, you see I'm not looking for anything on this text. I'm just looking to what I have just learned, which is these three an, in, and un. Here, this at the end, you have that tail is like bent. So now just by looking at this, I get this is a name. Here I find another one. So this is a name. This is guaranteed it's a name. There is no other in a language, Arabic number. If you have an, in, un at the end of a word, that's guaranteed it's a name, and it's an indefinite name, or it's a proper noun. So proper nouns and indefinite names, like this here is a man, indefinite man, and it could be any man. Here is an elephant, it could be any elephant. So this is one. Here, this is a description, also a name. You see I found this here, another one here. This is here another one, that's another name. We will learn more symbols that only attach to names, and by doing so, you will be able to pick more names. So here, I know by grammar that this should be an N here, but it's not obvious from the text. So I know it's there. That's one of the point of learning the grammar, because this is an indefinite name, and it's preceded by one of these letters that cause the end of the name to go down. So don't worry about learning this. This is what the class is about. We will learn these in next videos. So here we see, if we have here we have an un. So you see this here is a dragon. So un. Here is another one, because it has an un at the end of it. This is a description, an adjective. Here is another un. So what you need to do is just put in the time to, you're not doing anything here, you're just looking for three symbols. If you ever heard about the Rosetta Stone, it's a language that no one is speaking, and engraved on a stone. And a French, I think he was a French linguist, was able to decipher it. So imagine if you're doing the same thing and you have a code to how to do that. So I gave you the clues to find out the names in this text without even knowing the alphabet or the meaning of the nouns. And that's a great deal, especially if you're like learning a new language, just to be able to look at any text and find the symbols and say this is a name, this is a verb, and you will see the value of this as we proceed. So now this is an on. I found these here. This is a different one. You see, this is different. This is not two scratches. It has a different symbol there, so it's not what we're looking for. In here we have other names. We will use different distinguishing marks for names in the future videos, but this is what the idea I want to drive home, this is one thing we can start with. So this here is another two scratches. An, قريبا, an. This is the sound of this letter. Soon, meaning soon. This is an. This is here another two scratches. So this is another name with one of these letters attached to it. We will learn how to recognize that. This is un. That's another name, an indefinite name. All these un, an, in. If you add that in to the sound, just like you have an, in English, these sound the same. So an, in, and un. This un, this here, this is another name. This here, same thing. It's not obvious, but I know this should be an indefinite name. It's a thing. This here means in things. So in thing, this thing here should have an in at the end there. So if you don't recognize this, I just did because I know it from the grammar, as I said. So this here, two scratches. That's another name. This here, a description, has that scratch there, two scratches. That's another name. This is in because it's at the bottom. If it's at the bottom, it's in. If it's at the top, it's an. And here we have, this is at top, an. You see, this is an. You see, that's at the end. That's another name. This is another an. That's at the end there. These are obvious. So this is here another one. That's another name. So as you see, I think this is the only thing, if you take from this lesson so far, is that you're now able to recognize indefinite names in any Arabic text just by recognizing these three movements: an, in, and un. Now I will just give you a brief or a summary of what to expect. You will see that you'll be able to pick more names. We will have other signs like L, which is like in Arabic. In English it's the. So you have L here. So if you look for this L there, in this text too, you see this here there is an L here. And usually when you have this diacritics written in a text, you will see this slow movement on it on the L here. So you will be able, next videos we will cover this L and another signs that cause this lowering of the end of the noun. So we will focus on this video and next two videos on how to recognize names and nouns in a text without even knowing anything about the grammar or the alphabet. And the videos after that, we will work on recognizing verbs. You see, if you're just able to do that, recognize the names and the nouns, in this case you will be able to know which is definite, which is indefinite. And the verbs, you can use a dictionary and you can decipher this as if just like the man who did decipher the code on a Rosetta Stone. So this is how valuable I think this is to be able to recognize these just by recognizing a few symbols. So now if I use this another information, don't worry about this third one, we will do it again in the next video, but this L here, it only attaches to nouns. So you will not see a verb with L attached to it, only a noun. And it's a definite article, so it means it defines the noun. So it becomes defined. So if we look in this text, this here is, we will learn, is just a meaning letter, it's called. It's not an L. So this is different. But for nouns, you will see it. This here is a noun. This here is a noun. You see this L there. This is a noun. As I said, just focus on the three symbols. I'm just giving you an example of how by the time I finish this, you'll see we've picked up most of the names in this text. So I look in here, as I said, we will learn this. This is one letter together. It's not an L here, but I have it in here. This, if you have word with more than three letters and you have an L to it, that's a noun. So at the beginning, this L can only be at the beginning. So this here, this is the same word. That's another noun. This here is another noun. As I said, don't worry about me finding these fast. You can take your time doing this, and we will do this again in the next video. So this is also, when we start to recognize what are these separate letters, you will know this is another name. That's another name, definite name, defined. This is another name, another name, another name. You see, I notice this L there. That's it. I know it's a name. This here is another name. That's another name. That's another name. That's another name. This L at the beginning. This here is another name. So you see how I just figured out most of the names in this. We missed a couple here of these on. You see this on here, that's an indefinite name. This here a description of it with the on there, that's another indefinite name. Okay, now there is more signs. This on that we pronounce without seeing a representation of it, sometimes it's written as a full letter like in here and there. So by learning these one by one, you will be able to pick out all the names in the text and all the verbs and know which one, except for some few exceptions. But this and on, this is definitely only goes with indefinite nouns and with the proper nouns like Muhammadun, Zaydun, the nouns that take that movement, the proper nouns that accept that movement is an, on, and on. So I think this should be enough for this first video, and I hope I was able to convince you of that this is how easy this is. Just as I said, just imagine if the the man who wanted to decipher that Rosetta Stone had a code or information about how to pick which are the names, which are the verbs. And when we advance in these videos, you will be able to see this, how some letters will tell us what this is a present tense that has its own marks. It can only, you have some letters can only attach to present tense. and other letters can only attach only to nouns, and they have influence on the ending of these nouns and present tense verb. Just by recognizing these, building up these one by one, you see how this starts to become clearer and clearer. And just by what you just learned now, you can open a dictionary or an electronic English Arabic dictionary and try to type this in. You will know what this here and what's that there, what these are here. These are snake. This is arba'at description for snakes. You see, you start to build if you know the verb between these names, now you start to look at the text that you don't even know the alphabet of, and start to have an idea what could this be about. That's, I think, is very valuable, just to learn that you can do this to a language. Just learn few symbols of it and be able to recognize the names and the nouns in the text. So I hope you find this one useful, this video, and we will continue with this playlist. As soon as I can, I'll make the next video will be the same thing. We try to recognize the nouns. We will not cover all the marks or distinguishing marks for nouns. We will start also with verbs. As we proceed, you'll be able to, we will learn more of these. So thank you for listening. I'll see you next time, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.